In the early hours of a humid Louisiana morning, a single flashing blue light signaled the end of one of the greatest Cinderella stories in modern music history. The world first met Jourdan Blue as the humble street performer with a voice that could stop traffic in the French Quarter. His rise was nothing short of a miracle. A man who went from sleeping in the back of a warehouse to standing under the golden confetti of America's Got Talent. He was the symbol of hope for every underdog in the country. But as the sun rose over a local precinct in March 2026, that image of the golden boy didn't just crack, it shattered. Reports began surfacing of a roadside intervention that led to the singer being taken into custody, facing a string of serious allegations including operating a vehicle while under the influence and driving with a suspended license. For the Blue Crew, his massive international fanbase, the news felt like a physical blow. How could someone who had survived the harshest streets of New Orleans, someone who had literally sung his way out of poverty, find himself in such a compromising position just as his debut global tour was being announced? Investigative sources suggest that the scene was chaotic, with authorities discovering an open container in the vehicle, painting a picture far removed from the polished, inspirational figure seen on national television. This wasn't just a minor traffic stop. It was the public unveiling of a private crisis that had been brewing behind the scenes for months. The headlines across the country all asked the same haunting question. Was the pressure of being a national hero too much for a man who was still healing from his own past? As the booking photos began to circulate on social media, the narrative of the street to stardom legend was replaced by a much darker reality. This was no longer a story about a beautiful voice. It was an investigation into a rapid and public unraveling that no one saw coming. To understand why the world was so shocked by Jourdan's recent legal troubles, you have to look at the shadows he thought he had finally escaped. Before the fame, Jourdan Blue's life was a masterclass in survival, but that survival came with a heavy psychological price tag. Growing up in the heart of Louisiana, he faced challenges that would have broken most people long before they ever saw a stage. He was open about his history of sofa surfing and the desperate measures he took to provide for his young son, Jax, and his girlfriend. However, what he rarely discussed in detail during his televised interviews was the depth of his previous battles with personal demons. Investigative reports from his early years in New Orleans hint at a life lived on the absolute edge, including a significant near-fatal incident involving a substance mishap that nearly took his life years ago. While he claimed to have moved past those destructive habits through sheer will and the love of his family, experts in the industry often warn that sudden, massive fame can act as a trigger for old traumas. In the months leading up to his 2026 arrest, there were whispers within the music community that Jourdan was struggling with the isolation of the spotlight. He had moved from the tight-knit, albeit struggling, community of New Orleans street performers to the cold, high-pressure world of Hollywood contracts and constant public scrutiny. Those close to the singer suggest that, while he looked like a winner on camera, he was increasingly feeling like an outsider in his own life. The transition was so fast that there was almost no time for him to process the shift from being a nobody to a somebody. As the investigation into his recent behavior continues, many are looking back at his early lyrics, which were filled with references to running from ghosts, realizing now that those ghosts may have been closer than anyone cared to admit. The golden buzzer might have changed his bank account, but it couldn't rewrite the traumatic history of a man who spent his formative years fighting just to stay alive. While the public was focused on his chart-topping hits, a devastating medical diagnosis within his inner circle was quietly pushing Jourdan to the edge. Behind every public figure is a private reality, and for Jourdan Blue, that reality turned tragic in late 2025. Just as he was preparing for the biggest professional year of his life, his father, the man he credited as his primary musical inspiration, received a life-altering cancer diagnosis. For a man like Jourdan, who built his entire career on the concept of family and loyalty. This news was a crushing blow that the public was never supposed to see. Reporters have since learned that Jourdan was splitting his time between high-profile recording sessions and sterile hospital rooms, trying to be the provider his family needed while maintaining the star persona the industry demanded. This immense emotional weight created a pressure cooker environment. Sources close to his management team have hinted that Jourdan began showing signs of extreme fatigue and emotional volatility in the weeks leading up to the March incident. He was reportedly acting as the sole financial and emotional rock for his household, all while the world watched his every move on TikTok and Instagram. It is now speculated that this double life became unsustainable. The March 2026 arrest wasn't just a random act of recklessness. Many now view it as the inevitable result of a man trying to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders without a support system of his own. In the industry, we often see this downward spiral when personal tragedy intersects with professional peak. The shock felt by the public was rooted in the contrast between his father's brave battle and Jourdan's apparent self-destruction. Rumors of rekindled old habits began to circulate, suggesting that the singer may have sought a temporary escape from the crushing reality of his father's illness. This section of the story serves as a somber reminder that behind the perfect lives of our favorite celebrities are the same heartbreaks and struggles that affect us all, often amplified by the relentless glare of the paparazzi. As the dust settles on the arrest that rocked the industry, the question remains: is this the end of the road for Jourdan Blue or the beginning of a much-needed comeback? In the weeks following the Louisiana incident, the music industry has been forced into a state of reflection. Jourdan Blue has been released from custody, but the legal process is only just beginning. Legal analysts suggest that while the accusations surfaced are serious, his lack of a prior major criminal record since his rise to fame might offer him a path toward a rehabilitative outcome rather than a purely punitive one. However, the court of public opinion is often less forgiving than a judge. The Blue Crew is currently a house divided. Some fans have started cancel campaigns, feeling that his actions behind the wheel put innocent lives at risk and betrayed the inspirational message he preached. Others are calling for a more empathetic approach, citing his mental health struggles and the trauma of his father's illness as reasons for support. What is clear is that the golden boy image is gone forever, replaced by something much more complicated and human. This story has exposed the dark side of YouTube and reality TV fame, the way we build people up into icons of perfection only to watch them crumble under the weight of those expectations. Jourdan's future is now a massive question mark. Will he use this exposed moment to speak honestly about addiction and the pressures of fame, or will he disappear back into the New Orleans shadows from which he emerged? The final chapter of this investigation hasn't been written yet, but the impact of 2026 will be felt for years to come. It serves as a shocking reminder that talent is never a shield against reality, and that even the most beautiful voices can be silenced by the weight of their own history. As we look at the footage of a man who once had the world at his feet, we are left to wonder if we, the audience, play a role in these tragedies by demanding perfection from people who are clearly still in pain.